Could a Stone Age fishhook survive water better than some modern materials? That sounds absurd, because bone seems like something water should quickly ruin. Yet prehistoric fishers repeatedly trusted carved bone beneath rivers, lakes, and seas. The secret was not magic, and it was not truly perfect waterproofing. It was clever material choice, careful shaping, polishing, and surprisingly useful physics. These tiny hooks helped ordinary families catch food when hunting became unreliable. They also reveal how deeply Stone Age people understood materials without formal equations. Nobody wrote a textbook explaining collagen, friction, tension, or crack resistance. Instead, generations learned by breaking hooks, losing fish, and trying again. Every failed catch was basically an expensive science lesson with scales. So how did animal bone become a dependable tool underwater? And why could one polished hook change an entire family's dinner? Imagine a lakeside community near the end of the Ice Age. Winters are harsh, animals move unpredictably, and edible plants remain seasonal. Fish, however, gather in rivers, shorelines, and shallow spawning grounds. They are nutritious, numerous, and annoyingly difficult to grab with bare hands. Spears work in clear shallows, but deeper water demands another strategy. Nets can catch many fish, although nets require enormous amounts of fiber. A hook and line offers portability, precision, and access beyond the shoreline. That simple system needs three cooperating parts: line, hook, and attachment. Remove one part, and lunch immediately becomes an aquatic escape artist. Most fishing lines were probably made from twisted plant fibers or sinew. Those materials usually decay, leaving archaeologists with frustratingly incomplete evidence. Bone hooks survive more often because mineralized tissue resists decay better. Some famous examples come from Jordan River Durijat in northern Israel. Their hooks dating roughly 15,000 to 12,000 years ago appeared. They included different sizes, barbs, grooves, adhesives, and possible artificial lures. Elsewhere, shell hooks appeared even earlier in parts of Southeast Asia. Different communities solved similar fishing problems using locally available materials. The best bones were not random scraps tossed beside the fire. Craftspeople often selected dense sections from long bones, ribs, or antler. Here comes the first twist. Bone actually needs some water. Completely dry bone becomes stiffer, but it also loses toughness and flexibility. Hydrated collagen helps bone absorb energy before a crack races through it. So water was not simply the enemy. Sometimes dryness was more dangerous. However, soaked bone is not invincible, and repeated stress still causes damage. Stone Age makers balanced hardness, toughness, thickness, and shape through experience. They were materials engineers, just without safety goggles or conference badges. A fisher needed hooks small enough for fish, yet thick enough for strength. A narrow point pierced easily, but an overly thin bend could snap. A broad bend distributed stress, though excessive bulk made bait look suspicious. Craft knowledge likely passed through observation, imitation, correction, and repeated practice. Now our ordinary fisher needs a new hook before tomorrow's trip. First, the household must obtain a suitable bone from a hunted animal. Nothing is wasted, because meat, marrow, hide, tendons, and bone all matter. A deer leg bone offers dense outer tissue called cortical bone. This outer layer combines mineral crystals, collagen fibers, and tiny amounts of water. The mineral phase provides stiffness, while collagen contributes toughness and crack resistance. Together, they form a natural composite, somewhat like reinforced building material. The maker removes the joint ends and splits the shaft lengthwise. Flint blades, stone saws, wedges, and hammerstones can perform these jobs. Experimental archaeology shows the process demands patience and steady hand control. Dry, stored bone may be briefly soaked to soften its working surface. It simply makes piercing and grooving easier, while reducing sudden splintering. The maker follows the bone's natural grain instead of fighting it. A long strip becomes the blank from which the hook emerges. The blank must remain thickest where bending forces will concentrate. That dangerous location is usually the curved bow of the hook. Later strength tests confirm many replicas break at precisely that bend. Here comes another surprise. Ancient hooks could carry serious loads. Neolithic replicas from Ajvid averaged predicted breaking loads near 10 kilograms. That exceeded the average cod size represented at the settlement. They were specialized tools capable of deep-water cod fishing from boats. A hole may be drilled where the inner curve will begin. Grooves are cut toward that hole using sharp flint edges. Stone dust mixed with water can increase abrasion during grinding. Grinding removes material gradually, offering more control than brutal chopping. Brutal chopping is fast, but so is ruining 3 hours of work. Some experimental bone hooks require 3 or 4 hours each. The outer curve is shaped first, keeping the bend wide and smooth. Then the inner space is opened through scraping, grooving, and grinding. Small flint bladelets dull quickly and must be renewed repeatedly. Each replacement creates tiny debris that archaeologists can later identify. The point is narrowed carefully, but not sharpened into fragile perfection. Some hooks include inner barbs, while others remain completely barbless. Barbs improve retention, but they complicate carving and increase weak corners. Barbless hooks can work effectively when steady line tension is maintained. A groove or knob near the shank secures the fishing line. Some ancient examples preserve plant fibers trapped inside attachment grooves. Others contain residues suggesting adhesives helped stabilize the connection. The hook, line, knot, and glue formed one integrated machine. Now polishing begins. And this step matters beyond making things pretty. A smooth surface removes scratches where cracks could begin under tension. It may slow surface wetting, although bone remains naturally porous. So the finished hook was water-resistant, not magically sealed forever. Some makers may also have used fats, oils, resins, or adhesives nearby. Such substances can resist water, but evidence varies between sites and objects. We should not imagine one universal prehistoric waterproofing recipe. Now the line must survive the same watery workplace. Twisted fibers gain strength because many weak strands share the load. Tension squeezes the strands together, increasing friction between their surfaces. A tight knot redirects force around the hook's grooved shank. But every bend in a line creates stress and possible abrasion. The best hook becomes useless when the knot slips loose. Ancient fishing therefore required knowledge of plants, fibers, knots, and timing. Families and communities probably divided tasks according to experience and opportunity. Someone gathered fibers, someone twisted cordage, and someone shaped the hook. Once assembled, the system enters the water under controlled tension. Bait adds scent, movement, and a reason for fish to make mistakes. A stone sinker may pull the hook toward deeper feeding zones. Grooved stones found beside ancient hooks likely served that exact purpose. The fisher chooses depth based on season, species, weather, and water clarity. Now a fish bites, and the physics suddenly becomes personal. The fish pulls, transferring force through point, bend, knot, and line. The hook's curve redirects that force toward the fish's mouth. A broad bend spreads stress across more bone material. Smooth polishing reduces dangerous notches that could concentrate stress. Hydrated collagen allows slight deformation instead of immediate brittle failure. The mineral component keeps the hook stiff enough to hold its shape. Too much stiffness encourages cracking, while too much flexibility loses the fish. The design succeeds by balancing both properties within a tiny object. Here's the third twist. The hook may outlast the line. Plant cordage usually decays, snaps, or disappears from archaeological sites. Bone survives, creating the illusion that fishing involved hooks alone. Archaeologists must reconstruct missing technologies from grooves, residues, wear, and context. One preserved fiber can change the interpretation of an entire tool. At Jordan River Durijat, fibers appeared on both hooks and stone sinkers. That connection supports a complete line and hook fishing system. Not isolated curiosities. Some hooks also show wear consistent with repeated attachment and use. Repeated success would encourage makers to copy certain dimensions and curves. At Ajvid, hundreds of similar hooks suggest skilled and organized production. Standard shapes probably match specific fishing methods and target species. Children likely watched adults transform an ordinary bone into something valuable. Experiments today show experienced makers create more consistent hooks than novices. Skill becomes visible through symmetry, polishing, thickness, and controlled drilling. Each successful hook therefore stores information from earlier generations. It is both a tool and a compact lesson in material science. Fishing success could stabilize food supplies during seasonal shortages. Reliable fish also supported larger settlements near productive waters. Extra catches could be dried, smoked, shared, or stored. However, preservation methods differed widely and rarely leave complete archaeological records. A successful fishing season reduced dependence on dangerous large game hunts. Nobody complains when dinner stops trying to trample the hunters. Fish bones found at settlements reveal species, sizes, and seasonal patterns. Together with hooks, they show how people selected different aquatic habitats. Herring, cod, pike, perch, salmonids, and eels demanded different strategies. A single hook shape could not perfectly serve every mouth. Small hooks target different fish than heavy hooks with wide openings. Artificial lures may have added color, movement, or reflective attraction. That is another surprise. Prehistoric fishing was not merely bait on bone. Some ancient fishers were already experimenting with lure-like additions and adhesives. They understood animal behavior through observation, not laboratory tanks or underwater cameras. Could a certain color attract fish during cloudy weather? Would a moving feather imitate struggling prey near the surface? Those questions could only be answered through repeated, real-world trials. Successful answers became traditions, while failures became stories beside the fire. Bone hooks also challenged the idea that stone defined the Stone Age. People used wood, fiber, hide, shell, antler, bone, and plant resins. Stone survives best, so museums sometimes accidentally exaggerate its importance. The Stone Age was really an age of materials that mostly vanished. Bone was especially valuable because animals provided ready-made, curved composite structures. Makers could align a hook with natural curvature, saving time and strength. Some hooks were carved from flat bone surfaces following existing contours. That choice reduced waste and helped preserve continuous structural fibers. Not every hook carried a barb, despite modern expectations. Many barbless designs worked through tension, angle, and skilled handling. Nor were all hooks tiny versions of modern metal hooks. Some forms looked asymmetrical, broad, or surprisingly thick. Their appearance reflected bone's properties rather than metal's possibilities. Another misconception says prehistoric people made tools casually from convenient scraps. Fishhook production could consume hours and generate carefully patterned waste. Regional methods persisted for centuries, suggesting traditions mattered alongside pure function. People sometimes kept familiar techniques even when alternatives were possible. Apparently, humans defended favorite workflows long before office software existed. Broken hooks reveal failures during manufacture, fishing, burial, and later soil pressure. Researchers compare fracture surfaces to separate ancient breaks from recent damage. The bow remains a common failure zone because bending stress concentrates there. Thicker bows improve strength, but they also change presentation and hooking behavior. Every design choice creates benefits, costs, and several new problems. Waterproof is therefore the wrong absolute word for these hooks. They were wet-tolerant tools made from a hydrated biological composite. Polishing, dense bone, good geometry, and possible coatings improved their performance. The real achievement was managing water, not completely defeating it. Here is the final twist. Moisture helped preserve mechanical toughness. A perfectly dried hook could become less forgiving under sudden loads. Ancient makers may not have known molecules, but they knew reliable results. Their science lived inside habits, gestures, proportions, and material selection. A polished bone hook looks simple only after someone solved everything difficult. It joins geology, biology, physics, ecology, and patient craftsmanship. It also connects one fisher's hands with an unseen animal underwater. That connection could mean food, trade, security, or survival. Ordinary people turned leftover skeletons into precision tools for uncertain environments. They did it without metal, written formulas, or standardized measuring tapes. Yet their hooks balanced stiffness, toughness, friction, tension, and fluid resistance. Modern experiments confirm that many designs were stronger than casual observers expect. Archaeological residues reveal adhesives, fibers, and attachments invisible at first glance. Broken pieces reveal where forces acted and how makers adapted. Even discarded fragments can preserve a community's engineering decisions. So the next time something is called primitive, examine its hidden system. A hook is never just a hook when dinner depends upon it. It is material knowledge shaped by failure, memory, and careful observation. Stone Age fishers did not make bone completely waterproof. They made bone dependable enough to work repeatedly in wet conditions. That practical difference mattered more than any perfect scientific label. Their greatest invention may have been combining several imperfect materials successfully. Bone provided structure, fiber carried tension, stone added weight, and bait supplied deception. Together, those parts created a technology greater than each separate component. And every successful catch proved the system before anyone could explain it. What other vanished Stone Age inventions are hiding behind surviving scraps? Perhaps the next tiny artifact will rewrite another supposedly simple human story.